Office Lab, and today I want to show you how to create this beautiful and interactive dashboard in Microsoft Excel in 5 easy steps. Now, to give you a general idea of what you can do with this dashboard allows you to filter your data by different perspectives, for example, by years. And as you can see, all the charts in the dashboard above are updated immediately according to the selection you made. And another pretty cool thing is that these filters down here are working together. So once you made a selection in one filter, all the other filters only display the data points that are still available with this previous selection made. So I think this is a pretty helpful tool to display whatever data you're interested in. In my case, I chose some sales data. I generated randomly just some dummy data, but you can choose whatever data you like and whatever filter you like. So let's get right into it and see how this is built step by step. So the first thing you need is data. For this example, I generated some hypothetical sales data randomly, but you can use whatever data you like as soon as they have this certain shape, like my data. So the different dimensions have to be in the header row, and your entries have to be beneath that. And in my case, I guess I have about 2,000 entries in here, like with order ID, a date, a customer ID, some generic customer name, company name, then a salesperson, the region the salesperson works in, some generic item names and the price, quantity for this item, for this order in this case, and the resulting revenue. So in the next step, we're going to build our 5 pivot tables that are required to create our dynamic charts for the dashboard. The first chart we want to create is the sales trend line chart. So let's go to the New tab and insert a pivot table. Now we have to select a certain range of data, so we go back to the sales data and select the whole range. Exactly like this. And now for the pivot table, we have to choose a dimension for the rows, and as we want to have a time series, we choose date. And now you can see it's summed up also on a quarter basis. We don't want that, so we delete that field. And as we want to have a look at revenue, this is what we drop down into the values field. Yes, exactly. And now we're able to create a pivot chart just with one click. And since we want to have a line chart, we're going to change the design of this chart and change chart type into a line chart with some beautiful dots. So that's it for this first chart. Now the second chart we're going to create is the sales by region chart. And for this we want to use the maps chart function, which is a pretty cool feature in Microsoft Excel and PowerPoint. So we're going to create another pivot chart by selecting the whole range, and then we drop the region fields into the columns area and the revenue fields into the values area, just like before. There we go. And for some reason we are not able to create the maps chart directly from the pivot table, so we have to copy these values. For the state names we can leave them as they are, but for the values, as we want to have a dynamic later on, we have to create a reference to the pivot table cell for all 4 of these cells. For California, New Mexico, and Texas, Texas, Texas. There we go. And now with this copied and adjusted table, we can, let's change that to revenue, yes. Now we can create our maps chart. Let's see, there it is. So it automatically reads.
Origin 2017 introduces new trellis plots, allowing users to easily visualize complex multivariable data sets. Users can easily create multi-paneled line, scatter, and column graphs, as well as multiple combinations of these. Let's look at an example. Here we have different drug and dose values in columns C and D. To plot data grouped by drug and dose, we'll choose Trellis Plot from the Plot menu. Next, let's specify the plot type. Here we'll use line and symbol. Set the drug column for the horizontal panel variable and dose for vertical panels. The preview window will update to show these changes. Let's take this a step further. This dialog supports multiple variables for a single panel direction. To demonstrate this grouping capability, instead we'll set both drag and dose as horizontal variables, returning a single row, further differentiated by groups of data within groups. And you can also map the plot colors based on any of these variables. Click OK, and the trellis plot will be created. This multi-panel graph is rendered as a single layer, so all panels share the same X and Y range. And in contrast with old grouped plot types, a trellis plot will not create an extra data sheet with the plot. Now if we update the legend, we'll see it now indicates for dose. You can further customize the panel details dialog on the newly added panel tab for each plot. It's important to note here, however, that if multiple data are together, they will share the same plot layout. Trellis plots can easily be reorganized from the plot details dialog by using the wrap panels setting. Here we've set wrap panels to 2, so that each drug is listed in its own row. The numbers don't make it obvious, however, that the first row of each header indicates the drug type. To change this, double-click on one of the headers to open the Axis dialog. These headers will be listed as tick labels called panel banners. We can easily modify their content by going to the string drop-down list, which shows a number of preset syntaxes. Should you decide to remove one of the panel variables altogether, you can always go back to the Panel tab in the Plot Details dialog and add or remove the column variables from there. In this example, we'll remove the dose column from the horizontal panel and add it to the vertical panel, making the graph show 2 by 3 panels. Rather than having to merge two separate graphs, you can overlap panels in one or both directions to better illustrate the differences in your data. Gaps can also easily be added to your panels with control in either direction. And you can also alternate the sides of your ticks and labels as well. This has been a brief introduction to trellis plots. If you'd like to know more about them and other plot types, you can find many more examples in Origin Central.
What states or what countries you inserted, so that's pretty cool, and it's even cooler when it gets dynamic. So let's head on to the next one. Let's continue with the sales by employee chart. For this we create just another pivot table, just like we did before, with the same data. So we select the same range like before from the Sales Data tab. And what we want to do now is compare the performance of different salespersons, not only between these persons, but also over time, so that we can see if the performance dropped or they improved. And since revenue is still the main measure of performance, we drop that field into the values area just like before. And now we are able to create our pivot chart with just one click. There we go. There we have our pivot chart. And as you see right now, it's pretty colorful, looking not so nice in my opinion, but we're going to deal with that later on when we start to design our dashboard. So for our fourth chart, we want to have a pie chart that visualizes the share of each item in the total revenue. So we create just another pivot table from all the data, and this time we drop the item field into the rows area and the revenue field into the values area. And then we can just use this one-click option for the pivot chart. And there we go. And as we want to have a pie chart, we have to change the chart type, and we choose that donut. I think it's the most beautiful pie chart by far. And now we can continue with the last chart. For our last chart, we want to have our customer revenues displayed in a descending order in a horizontal bar chart. So for this, we just have to create another pivot table and use the customer name field for the rows area and the revenue field for the values area. And then we have to sort our pivot table in an ascending order by sum of revenue. Let's say, there we go, sum of revenue, right? Because when we create that bar chart, it will be the other way around. You will see it. Here we have just a vertical bar chart, basically, a column chart. And there we go, switch it to bar chart, and as you can see, that's exactly the result we wanted. And so we just finished the creation of all pivot tables and charts. So now we can continue with the next part, which is the most fun part, I guess. Alright, so let's start building the dashboard. I'm really excited to show you how to do this. So the first thing we're going to do is getting rid of these grid lines, because they don't look so nice for our dashboard. And now we need a nice background. And I choose this picture. I hope you like it, because I really like it. And now let's start by inserting our header line. So we choose a text box, and we have to choose a font. I really like Helvetica Light, because I think for this purpose it's like the most beautiful font you could think of. And let's just call it Performance Dashboard. Right, and let's make it a bit bigger. 45 should work. Yeah, I guess it looks nice. So now let's delete the filling and the line, and let's make it white. Perfect. And now we want to have a little subheader. So we put this up here and create a line to separate those two headers from each other. Let's create this line. And I don't think it's perfectly horizontal at this point. So let's make it wide and then adjust the height to 0. There we go, 0. And now we can insert our subheader, which we just gonna call, let's put it there, which we're just gonna call, let's think of something, the Office Lab Enterprise Incorporation. Just some random name, but I think it should look nice. Okay, let's make it a little bit smaller, 28 in the center. Alright, and now let's just reorder these elements so that they look good together. Let's make this a bit shorter and put it in the center. Alright, perfect. So now we can start building the key elements of our dashboard, which are basically some simple rectangles that we need to create our so-called tile design. This is what I want to do, having different tiles with the charts in it. Now let's make this black with a black filling and no line. And then the key element of my dashboard design is working with the transparency of these tiles, because I think this looks really beautiful. And in this case, I guess 60 should just work fine. This looks good to me. And now I just have to duplicate this one tile and adjust the shapes for the other 4 tiles to create the basic structure of my dashboard. So let's just resize this and copy it 2 times. There we go, 1 time. Let's make this a little bit bigger. Reorder this and copy it, put it next to there. We have to make this bigger as well so that they more or less have the same size. And now I guess we have to readjust the upper one like this. Yeah. Guys, that looks nice. Okay, and now we have to create the last of the tiles, which will be on the right side, and go from top to bottom. Like this. Yeah, okay. Perfect. And now let's just move all these tiles together more or less into the center. Manually. Okay, there we go. We have to keep in mind that we still have to keep some space below these elements because later on we want to insert some filters below there. Now let's continue with creating the titles for our tiles. So let's make it a bit smaller. 20 should be a good size. And for this first tile we want to insert our time series later. So this is going to be our sales trend tile. And let's just position that and then just copy it to the next tile, which will be our sales by region tile. So there we're going to insert our nice looking maps chart later on. Let's rename this sales by region. And yeah, we have to make it a left alignment, a little bit bigger. Perfect. Now we can take this one for the next tile, which is the sales by employee tile. So let's rename this one sales by employee. Make it a bit bigger, copy it to the 4th tile, which is the item share tile. Oh, nice pie chart, donut chart. And last but not least, we have our customer revenue tile. So we call it customer revenue, and there we go. So let's insert some icons. Okay, so where are the icons? Actually, they should be right next to the shapes up there. I have no idea. So I guess I just have to copy the icons I need from another file, so just give me a moment. There we go. Beautiful icons. I really love icons. I think everybody should use icons. So yeah, I think that makes like everything more beautiful as long as you use them the right way. Okay, so let's place them where they should be. And perfect. So the next step is to insert the charts we created earlier into the dashboard and adjust their design in order to make them fit well with the general dashboard design. So let's start with the first chart, which is the sales trend chart. Let's simply copy it from this tab to the dashboard. And let's be honest, right now this chart just looks like utter trash, so we have to do some adjustments to make that look better. So let's start by setting this to no fill and change the color of the chart to white, and then we're going to smooth the line, which is a pretty cool feature in my opinion. Makes it look much better. Now let's get rid of all this unnecessary stuff Yes, and now let's just set the color, the general color of this to white. And now we just have to, oh, of course we want to get rid of this borderline right here. Don't want to have this in there. And now we just have to adjust the size of the chart a little bit so that it looks nice. And now this should be good enough for this first chart. So let's continue with the second chart, which is our beautiful maps chart for the sales by region tile. Let's just copy and paste it, insert it, and there are not that many adjustments we have to make, just some general stuff. Delete this title, resize it, and just move it down. Whoops. No, that's not what we wanted to move. Wanted to move the chart. Let's do it. And just adjust the size to fit into the tile. Make this white. And that's pretty much it, I guess. Let's move on to the third chart, the sales by employee chart. Copy it, paste it, and do the general adjustments to make it fit into this tile. And I think this chart is way too colorful in my eyes, so this is a bit confusing. It might be subjective, but I think with all these colors, it's not really pleasant to look at it. So let's change the colors to some shades of blue and of green. First of all, because I really like these two colors. I think they're way more pleasant to look at than some, for example, yellow or red. And the second reason is that we already have this different shades of blue on the left side, so I think that fits very well together. It's not that much contrast in the chart. So there we go. Yeah, that was already white. Let's make this white and this one as well. And yeah, let's make it a bit bigger so that it's better to read. No, not that big. It should be fine. Let's adjust this one as well to a size of 10. And yes, maybe then we should also adjust these axis titles, axis descriptions to 10. Yeah, I guess that's good. So for our item share chart, let's just copy that. And for this one, we're going to change the colors just to these different shades of green we already have in the sales by employee chart, so that now we have on the left with the sales by region chart, we have these shades of blue. In the middle, we have the different shades of blue and green. For the item share, we have different shades of green, and then it's kind of like symmetric. So let's make this one and this one. That's good. For this one, okay, there's no option. Let's just leave it that way.